The email arrived at 6:17 on a rainy Tuesday morning. Ethan Cole read it twice before the words finally sank in. Effective immediately, your position has been eliminated as part of our operational restructuring. He stared at the screen while the coffee in his hand slowly went cold. After 14 years at North River Turbine Systems in Wichita, Kansas, he was being replaced. Not by one person. Not even by a team. By 12 elite engineers brought in from across the country. And the worst part? He still had to finish his shift. Ethan closed the email and glanced at the picture taped beside his monitor. It showed him and his 10-year-old daughter, Lily, standing beside a lake at sunset. She was smiling. The kind of smile that reminded him exactly why he got up every morning. As a single father, there wasn't much room for self-pity. Bills still existed. School lunches still needed packing. Life kept moving. So Ethan stood up, straightened his work shirt, and walked back into the turbine assembly facility. No one needed to know his heart had just cracked in half. For years, Ethan had been the unofficial problem solver at North River. He wasn't the most educated employee. He never had an engineering degree. In fact, he had only completed 2 years of community college before life took a different path. When Lily's mother left shortly after Lily was born, Ethan became both mom and dad overnight. College disappeared. Dreams got postponed. Responsibility took over. So he worked. And worked. And worked. Over time, he developed an extraordinary understanding of the company's industrial turbine engines. He knew their sounds. Their vibrations. Their personalities. Most people saw machinery. Ethan saw stories. If a turbine made a certain clicking noise, he could often identify the problem before the diagnostic software finished loading. People joked that he could hear things machines weren't saying. The truth was simpler. He paid attention. 3 days after the layoff announcement, the new team arrived. 12 engineers. All highly qualified. All impressive. All carrying resumes filled with prestigious universities and major industry achievements. The company executives seemed thrilled. The engineers were given a private conference room, upgraded equipment, and access to every resource they requested. Ethan was asked to spend 2 weeks helping with the transition. The irony wasn't lost on him. He was training the people replacing him. Still, he remained professional. Because bitterness wasn't who he wanted Lily to see when he came home at night. The first engineer he met was Daniel Hart. Daniel was confident. Very confident. The kind of confidence that often entered a room before the person did. "You must be Ethan," Daniel said. "That's me. I've heard you're the guy who keeps everything running." Ethan smiled politely. "I try." Daniel laughed. "Well, with our team here now, things should become a lot more efficient." Ethan simply nodded. No argument. No resentment. Just a nod. Over the next several days, Ethan showed the team around the facility. Most were polite. A few were genuinely kind. Others barely acknowledged him. But one thing quickly became clear. They knew the theory. Ethan knew the reality. The difference mattered more than anyone realized. Then came Thursday. The day everything changed. North River's largest industrial turbine was scheduled for a critical demonstration. The machine represented a multi-million-dollar contract with a major energy company. Executives flew in. Investors arrived. Clients filled the observation room. Everything had to go perfectly. At 10:02 a.m., the startup sequence began. The turbine powered up. Systems checked green. Pressure stabilized. Then suddenly, the entire system shut down. Silence echoed through the massive facility. The room froze. A red warning light flashed across multiple monitors. Engineers rushed forward. Managers exchanged nervous looks. The clients watched quietly. No one spoke. Daniel took charge immediately. Run diagnostics. The team moved quickly. Computers connected. Data streamed. Charts appeared. The engineers analyzed every available system. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Then 40. Nothing. The turbine refused to restart. Every test suggested the engine should work. Yet it didn't. Pressure grew heavier by the minute. Executives started pacing. Investors checked their watches. The clients whispered among themselves. The atmosphere shifted from confidence to concern. Ethan sat quietly near the back of the room. He wasn't part of the meeting anymore. Technically, he wasn't even part of the future. Still, he watched. And listened. Mostly listened. After nearly 2 hours, frustration began spreading through the engineering team. Different theories emerged. Different solutions were attempted. Nothing worked. The turbine remained silent. Finally, Daniel noticed Ethan. "You've been awfully quiet." Ethan shrugged. "Didn't seem like my place." Daniel crossed his arms. "You think we're missing something?" Several engineers looked over. The room became awkwardly still. Ethan hesitated. Not because he lacked confidence. Because he didn't want anyone embarrassed. But the investors were waiting. The clients were waiting. And sometimes helping matters more than pride. "I might have an idea." Daniel sighed. "We've run every diagnostic available." "I know. So what exactly do you think 12 engineers overlooked?" The question carried more irritation than curiosity. Ethan didn't react. Instead, he pointed toward a monitor. "Could you restart the startup sequence one more time?" A few engineers exchanged amused looks. But Daniel nodded. The sequence began again. For several seconds, Ethan simply listened. The turbine spun. Systems engaged. Then came a faint sound. A tiny metallic chirp. Barely audible. Most people wouldn't notice it. Ethan did. "Stop." The machine halted. He walked toward the enormous turbine housing. The room watched. Years earlier, Ethan had discovered something unusual. One particular valve assembly occasionally expanded differently during rapid temperature changes. It was rare. Extremely rare. So rare it never appeared in diagnostic manuals. The sensors couldn't detect it. Software couldn't identify it. The issue only revealed itself through a tiny sound. A tiny sound Ethan had heard exactly twice before. He crouched beside a maintenance panel. After a brief inspection, he smiled. "There it is." "What?" Daniel asked. "A warped retaining bracket." Several engineers immediately objected. "Impossible. The diagnostics would have caught that. The tolerances are within acceptable limits." Ethan nodded. "Normally, yes." He pointed. "But not today." One engineer examined the bracket. Then another. Then another. The room slowly grew quiet. Because Ethan was right. A microscopic deformation had created a chain reaction that prevented proper startup. Not enough to trigger alerts. Not enough to appear in standard reports. But enough to stop the entire system. The repair itself took less than 20 minutes. Then everyone gathered once more. The startup sequence began. Pressure stabilized. Systems synchronized. The turbine roared to life. Powerful. Smooth. Perfect. Applause erupted throughout the observation room. The clients smiled. Executives visibly relaxed. Investors nodded approvingly. A contract worth millions remained intact. But something else happened that day. Something far more important. The engineers stopped seeing Ethan as the guy without the degree. They started seeing him as a person. A professional. A teacher. Someone whose knowledge came from years of dedication rather than letters after his name. Later that afternoon, Daniel approached him privately. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Daniel extended his hand. "I owe you an apology." Ethan looked surprised. "For what?" "I came here assuming expertise only came from credentials." He glanced toward the turbine floor. "You saved all of us today." Ethan shook his head. "No." Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" "I didn't save anyone." "You absolutely did." Ethan smiled. "I just listened." That answer stayed with Daniel. And over the following days, something remarkable happened. Instead of treating Ethan like a departing employee, the engineering team started learning from him. They asked questions. They shadowed his inspections. They listened to his stories about past equipment failures. Most importantly, they learned that knowledge isn't always found in textbooks. Sometimes it's built through years of showing up, paying attention, and caring deeply about your work. Meanwhile, Ethan quietly continued preparing for unemployment. Every night after work, he searched job listings. Every night, he worried. Not for himself. For Lily. She deserved stability. She deserved opportunities. She deserved a future free from financial stress. One evening, while helping her with math homework, she noticed something. "You've been sad lately." Ethan looked up. "What makes you think that?" She smiled. "You make pancakes when you're happy." He laughed. "That's your system?" "Yep." "When was the last pancake?" 3 weeks ago." Ethan couldn't argue with that logic. He eventually explained the situation. Carefully. Gently. Without frightening her. When he finished, Lily thought for a moment. Then she said something he never forgot. "Maybe they're supposed to learn from you before you leave." Ethan smiled. "Maybe." "No." She shook her head confidently. "Definitely." The following Monday, Ethan was called into the executive office. He assumed it was paperwork. Maybe final severance details. Maybe exit documentation. Instead, he found the plant director waiting alongside Daniel. Everyone looked strangely serious. Ethan sat down. "What's going on?" The director slid a folder across the desk. "We made a mistake." Ethan blinked. "What kind of mistake?" "The kind that happens when people focus on numbers and forget about people." The director explained that after the turbine incident, the engineering team had submitted a detailed report. Not about the machine. About Ethan. The report highlighted his expertise, institutional knowledge, leadership, and impact on operations. 12 elite engineers had unanimously reached the same conclusion. North River didn't need to replace Ethan. North River needed to learn from him. The director smiled. "We'd like to offer you a new position." Ethan stared. Speechless. A new position? Director of Technical Knowledge and Field Training. Daniel grinned. "Basically, your job would be teaching us everything you know." For a moment, Ethan couldn't speak. Years of sacrifice. Years of showing up before sunrise. Years of choosing responsibility over recognition. All of it suddenly felt seen. That evening, he drove home carrying the offer letter. Lily met him at the front door. "Good news or bad news?" Ethan held up the folder. "The best kind." Her eyes widened. "Does this mean pancakes?" He laughed harder than he had in months. Tomorrow morning. She wrapped her arms around him. And for the first time in a long while, the future felt bright. A year later, North River's training program became one of the most respected in the industry. New engineers studied technology. But they also studied observation, patience, humility, listening. The lessons Ethan valued most. Because the greatest thing he ever taught wasn't how to restart an engine. It was how to respect the people around you. Sometimes life convinces us that titles matter more than character. That credentials matter more than experience. That success belongs only to the loudest voices in the room. But the truth is often much simpler. People have value long before others recognize it. The quiet employee. The single parent working overtime. The person who keeps showing up without applause. They carry knowledge, wisdom, and strength that numbers can't measure. And kindness begins when we choose to see that value. Not after someone proves themselves. But before. Because everyone wants to be respected. Everyone wants to be heard. And sometimes the person everyone overlooks is exactly the person everyone needs. The next morning, Ethan stood in his kitchen flipping pancakes while Lily sat at the table doing homework. Sunlight streamed through the window. The world felt calm. Normal. Good. Lily took a bite and smiled. Told you. Told me what? That they needed to learn from you. Ethan looked at his daughter and laughed. Maybe she had been right all along. Sometimes the strongest people aren't the ones with the biggest titles. They're the ones who keep showing kindness, even when life gives them every reason not to. And those are the people who change the world, one small act, one patient lesson, and one listening ear at a time.